federal lawsuit for losing her job as a speech pathologist after refusing to sign a pro-Israel oath.
And we thought, what better way than international commerce? Let us interrupt international commerce coming from the state of Israel.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to The Struggle. The Struggle is shown on over 30 cable stations from Maine to New York City, on the internet at thestruggle.org. An outrageous situation in Texas is leading to a lawsuit filed by a school teacher named Bahia Amawi.
A Palestinian-American teacher in Austin, Texas, has filed a federal lawsuit for losing her job as a speech pathologist after refusing to sign a pro-Israel oath. Bahia Amawi is an Arabic-speaking child language specialist who had worked for 9 years in the Pflugerville Independent School District. But she lost her job last year after she declined to sign a pledge that she, quote, will not boycott Israel during the term of the contract, unquote, and that she will not take any action that is, quote, intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or limit commercial relations with Israel.
Now listen to the governor of Texas.
I'd like to turn to Texas Governor Greg Abbott speaking about the anti-BDS legislation last year in May.
Israel is one of Texas's largest trading partners. And then, of course, there is the issue about the essential international ally that Israel plays for both the United States and the state of Texas. As a result, any anti-Israel policy is an anti-Texas policy. Any boycott of Israel is considered to be un-Texan, and Texas is not going to do business with any company that boycotts Israel.
So that's
An essential ally? How is this little country essential to the United States? Did Israel ever defend American citizens? Oh yeah, Texas has a huge weapons industry, and Israel buys billions with money given to it by U.S. taxpayers. So Israel is essential to corporate profits. And what is this anti-Texas stuff that Abbott is talking about? What does this mean, anti-Texas? Do Texans now have to do a loyalty oath, a pledge of allegiance to Texas? Meaning whatever stuff its corporate execs want to push on the world. Realize that under this law, you can boycott goods from any country in the world except Israel. You can even call for a boycott of American products or of any state in the United States, including Texas. The only place you can call for a boycott is of Israel. You can't complain about this country that keeps Palestinians under its apartheid heel and wants U.S. soldiers to go fight a war for it in a conflict against Iran. Boycott is American as apple pie. In fact, it's even older than America. Back in grade school, you remember they taught about the evil Townshend Acts of the 1770s that enraged the colonists and led to boycotts of British goods. Then there was the Jewish-led boycott of Germany in the 1930s that for a while looked like it would topple Hitler. In the 50s, Rosa Parks' arrest led to a boycott of buses in Alabama. And of course, the decades-long boycott of apartheid South Africa that helped end the system. Now this Texas law is being used against a worker. Unions are well advised to stand with her in words and deeds. Any loss of boycott rights here is a loss of trade union boycott rights. The boycott tool has been used by trade unions as long as they've existed. One of the most famous was the grape boycott led by Cesar Chavez as he tried to organize farm workers. The AFL-CIO maintains a boycott list to this day, like this one, which includes honey grams and Ritz crackers. MEC is preparing an open letter to unions asking that they support Bahia Amawi. Check it out on our site, thestruggle.org, and if you agree with it, sign it. Now, some say don't worry because this law is unconstitutional. Well, sure, it violates basic principles, but remember, the Trump court, the Kavanaugh court, there's no way of knowing what will happen when this kind of thing goes up to the Supreme Court. The Texas law has been imitated in one way or another by 25 states, and there's danger of it being approved in a federal law.
Congress right now, it's Ben Cardin, a Democrat, who is pushing to include a criminal version of this state law and the continuing resolution that is set to expire on Friday. And so we might have, by the end of this week, a federal law that criminalizes the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement and the activity associated with it.
But since this Democracy Now! Clip, there's been news, good news. Haaretz reports that Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi have both come out against any law on BDS. This is something. They come out on grounds that it would curtail personal rights. All right. This is big news because neither of them have taken a stand favoring the right of us to use BDS before. Now from a meeting on Palestine earlier this year.
Good evening, everybody. So my name is Lara Kiswami, and I am the Executive Director of the Arab Resource and Organizing Center based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm very happy to be here for the first time in Connecticut. AROC provides direct legal services, immigration services for Arab and Muslim immigrants in the Bay Area. And then we work to organize them to shift the conditions that force them to need those services in the first place, that being war, militarism, and racism. And we do a lot of work around Zionism and around Palestine. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about why I think it's so important, not only because you live in the United States, but because you are here as people of conscience who care about social justice, why it's important to really center the work of Palestine and how to do so in a way that is also accountable to all the communities that you all care about, that we all care about. So I know we are all deeply committed to social justice and understand the struggle for Palestinian human rights as a social justice issue. We understand that it's an issue that must be taken up and that many people need to learn more about. And we know that understanding the struggle of the Palestinian people compels one to want to take action, like Iran was talking about, to make change. It is in fact a duty for us to act on these convictions. And as the Palestinian people on the ground are waging our struggle for liberation in the face of a violent colonial occupation, and Palestinians in diaspora continue to assert our right to return to our homelands, all of us here in the United States have a responsibility to do our part in supporting Palestinians in their struggle for freedom. Our role in the United States is critical because apartheid Israel wouldn't be possible without the economic, political, and military support of the United States. The brutal dictators in the Arab region, the wars, drone attacks, and destabilization of Syria, of Yemen, of Iraq would not be possible without the United States. And Israel plays an instrumental role in the interests of the United States to dominate that region, to expand its markets, and to exploit its people and resources. Do you guys agree with me on that?
Yes. Yeah.
So how many of you all protested the Muslim ban? And how many of you supported the undocumented immigrants and migrants over the recent years after the onslaught of attacks by the Trump administration? In moments like this, All of us are drawn to one another to stand united against oppression. What I want to encourage us today is to understand the issues we are facing here in the United States as not only similar to, but directly connected to supporting the Palestinian people and opposing apartheid Israel. So as we unite against racism, against sexism, against the Muslim ban, border walls, detention of migrant families, we have to ask ourselves, why are those families here in the first place? These families were forced to migrate to the United States in large part due to US foreign policy. That includes unwavering support of apartheid Israel. That's not a coincidence. We are reminded again here that the interests of the United States government are mirrored by apartheid Israel, and those interests are antithetical to our values of social and economic justice. So as has been mentioned, Israel and the United States are partners. Israel uses occupied Palestine as a laboratory to experiment with weapons, new technology, and tactics. Those tools are then exported right here into the United States and around the world to be used on other black and brown communities and oppressed communities around the world. It's this global partnership that threatens the well-being of our global community. And as people of conscience, we do not stand for war, do we?
No.
Do we stand for militarism?
No way.
Do we stand for racism?
No.
And so we don't stand for apartheid Israel. And that's why, as a Palestinian, I understand myself as an internationalist and understand the struggle for Palestinian liberation as an internationalist struggle. A struggle for all people committed to dignity, liberation, and freedom. Because if we're able to put an end to apartheid Israel, to put an end to settler colonialism, to free Palestine, we are in turn diminishing the power of this very government to further militarism and racism locally and globally. So as Arabs, we understand that by freeing Palestine, we are doing a service to every single person committed to a different world, where everyone has the freedom to stay, the freedom to move, and the freedom to return. Where people can live in dignity and to live to their fullest potential. After all, the greatest obstacle to our fullest potential are these global systems of oppression, and we must dismantle them. So as we know, how many of you guys have been to Palestine? And how many of you were transformed by that experience? And we want to ask ourselves, why is it that everyone goes to Palestine, comes back different, with a shifted perspective? It isn't because you go to Palestine and you encounter a suffering people. It isn't because you go to Palestine and you witness victimhood. It's because you go to Palestine, and Palestine illustrates for all of us the resilience of people's commitment to liberation. For 70 years, to collectively stand up to one of the largest militaries in the world, backed by the largest military in the world, is not an easy task. And to do so with such tenacity and such love for our people is a reflection of all our human potential. So even more so, I believe, what happens to each and every one of you who goes to Palestine is that once you go visit Palestine, you see yourself differently in the world, you see the world around you differently. When you visit Palestine, you understand the United States differently. You understand it better. You understand the history of the ethnic cleansing and genocide of the indigenous people of this country better. You understand the continued system of oppression that currently shape this current government's policies better. You understand the struggles of people every day around you differently. And one cannot witness that such intense, concentrated state violence that's made possible by this government and remain unchanged. Palestine provides us with a new worldview. And understanding this then helps us understand why it is so difficult when we try to stand up for Palestine in this country. The fact that student activists fear being vocal about their names or being seen in videos because of the blacklist websites like Canary Mission that ultimately limit their abilities to get jobs after they graduate, or that organizations are threatened to lose funding the minute they raise the issue of Palestine to take a position on BDS. And on top of that, you have legislation across the country trying to criminalize Palestine solidarity as anti-Semitic. If we understand the partnership between the United States and Israel, and we understand their shared interests, then we understand what's at stake when we are winning. What's at stake for them. So of course, when we organize and we pass BDS resolutions, they are threatened. And of course, when communities across all races, classes, genders, and sexuality understand the connections and joint fates of one another's liberation, that is in direct conflict with the interests of the United States and Israel. It makes it that much more important that we're all doing this work. But when we put up a fight and our opposition organizes against us, it's because we're making gains. Those whose interests lie in maintaining apartheid and racism are threatened by our work because they know we're winning. Our role today and every day is to keep doing this necessary work in service of all our liberation, because no one is free until all of us are free. So right now I want to talk to you about how we can do that work right here in the United States. I want to give a few examples of some struggles that AROC has taken leadership in the Bay Area. First, I want to remind everybody, who remembers 2014 and the war on Gaza? And the thousands of children that were being killed. How many of you demonstrated against that war on Gaza? And similarly in the Bay Area and San Francisco, we demonstrated, we took to the streets, and we decided we needed to do more. We wanted to make a direct impact economically and politically on the state of Israel. And we thought, what better way than international commerce? Let us interrupt international commerce coming from the state of Israel. Let us build solidarity with the workers who unload the ship that makes that international commerce possible to be in the streets, that ends up being ammunition used on other black and brown communities. And let's make a dent in Israel's economy. So we decided to block the boat. We planned on blocking that boat for one day, and we built for weeks with the workers in advance, and they even joined our coalition. And we realized the workers were committed to stopping that ship. So we blocked it for 2 days, for 3 days, for 4 days, for 5 days. It left. It came back a month later. We blocked it again. It left. It came back a month later. We blocked it again, and it hasn't come back. So it's an example. That's an example of how we can actually win BDS victories that actually impact Israel economically and politically. The largest Israeli shipping line is no longer able to dock in California because of organizers in the Bay Area who worked in solidarity with the trade union in Palestine. This was a call from the trade union in Palestine calling on workers to stand with us. We brought that call to the workers, and they met that call. And right after that, we organized with our parent leaders to fight for Arabic in the schools. You might be asking, why am I talking about Arabic in the school? We're talking about Palestine. So we fought and won for Arabic to be taught at San Francisco Unified School District from K through 12. A great victory for Arab people, a great victory for our community, a great victory for the Bay Area to be able to have that option for their children to learn Arabic in the schools. The very next day after the Board of Education voted unanimously to pass this resolution, who stood against it? The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, and the Jewish Community Relations Council, the two largest pro-Israeli interest groups in the Bay Area. Why would they be so offended by, scared of, threatened by young people learning Arabic? For them, the fact that we had just stopped the largest Israeli shipping line from docking at the Port of Oakland, led by Arabs across the Bay Area. The next thing you know, Arabs are saying, we want to feel dignified, our children want to see themselves in the curriculum, they want to be able to speak their language, they want to be their full selves. And we won that. That was a threat to them. Because Israel does not want to see the dignity and liberation of anybody, let alone the people they're trying to oppress and control. So we had to fight for 3 years against repressive policies, against repressive attacks by Zionists, in order to get the Board of Education, SF Unified, to realize, as we worked in partnership with the Vietnamese community, who also we worked together to get Arabic and Vietnamese, so both of them got stalled for 3 years. Our programming in the schools got stalled for 3 years, and just this year in June, our programming got reinstated, and just this semester, Arabic is now being taught in elementary school and high school in San Francisco. Wins are possible, and we have to understand all the work we do around social justice, economic justice is connected. Whether you're trying to win Arabic in the schools, or trying to stop the Israeli shipping line, it's all connected because social justice is connected. It's not about Israel. It's actually about social justice. And Israel isn't about social justice, and that's why the pro-Israeli interest groups always fall on the wrong side of history. The next thing I want to just show another video. Iran talked a bit about the work of Raya and the Israeli partnerships and police and law enforcement. We became aware in the Bay Area that the largest SWAT training, do you guys are aware of SWAT raids? I'm sure that happens across the East Coast. The largest SWAT training in the entire world was happening in the Bay Area since 2007. So we became aware of this. It happens on the weekend of 9/11 every single year. And it uses really racist depictions of Arabs and Muslims, surprise, surprise. And it also includes a weapons expo and brings Israel to train local law enforcement and EMTs, emergency responders and healthcare workers. And this ultra-militarization training was billed as a community preparedness training, a disaster preparedness training. So we organized for years on that, both as a victory against Israel, but also a victory of all communities of color and people of conscience against violence of militarization and policing. So
in Iran, thousands of workers are taking job actions and demonstrating at the Avaz steelworks. They've been protesting for weeks about delays in wage payments. While we certainly oppose war and sanctions against Iran, we stand firm with working people there against their repressive government. A group of homeless in New Haven are calling for a homeless person's Bill of Rights. They call themselves the Housing Not Jails Collective. They held a rally in front of City Hall in New Haven.
Housing not jails! Housing not jails! Housing not jails! Housing not jails! Fight! 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 Housing is a human right! Fight! 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 Housing is a human right! Fight! 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 Housing is a human right!
Once again, thank you everybody for coming out and joining us for our rally for Housing Not Jails. So Housing Not Jails is a collective of people who have experienced homelessness or are experiencing homelessness, and we get together and we tell our stories, give our testimonies, and try to come up with ways to make things better for ourselves and how to I don't want to say go up against the city or whatever.
Let me chime in, Diamond. Yo. Listen, Diamond. Listen. We gotta respect ourselves as homeless people, and then they'll respect us. We gotta police ourselves, and then they gonna police us, because they're gonna house us. It's a right, and that's why we here.
Another issue, personally for me, is the shelters. You know, there are walk-in shelters for men all around the state. There's none for women. No walk-in shelters for women. And it angers me that I cannot go to a shelter and just say, look, I'm homeless and in need of somewhere to go. I have to call 211, and when I call 211, they put me on a waiting list to do a CAN assessment, and when I go do my CAN assessment the next week, I get put on another waiting list until a bed becomes available, and God only knows how long before that bed becomes available. So as a woman, I'm stuck in the streets until a bed is available, whereas men can go right up here to Grand Avenue and walk into that shelter and get a bed.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Right now, the overflow is open on Cedar Street. It's seasonal, but it's still a walk-in shelter for men. They can go to Cedar Street with nowhere to go when it's cold and get a bed. But there's nowhere like that for women.
All right.
So on our Bill of Rights, these are the rights we're trying to get past as homeless. One, the right to be, The right to enjoy public space, which is agreed. So we don't get harassed by the cops and tell them to move along.
Be quiet. That's the problem.
The second one is employment fairness. Everybody deserves to work. Why can't we work just because we're homeless? Just because we got a criminal background, you don't want to give us jobs? This is not right.
That's not right. That's not right.
You can't get work. Everybody out here want to work, can't get a job because we're homeless? Come on. The third one, the right to medical care and dignity in meeting basic needs. The right to access clean bathrooms. Just because most homeless people, some of them use drugs in your restaurant or your place of business, you want to stop it so everybody can't use the bathroom? Where is that? That's not right either. We can't even have porta potties on the green. There's plenty of places you can put one so people can use the bathroom, but you can't. It's not right. For me, I've been to the hospital for my seizures. My fiance will tell you, I've been there numerous times. Because I'm homeless, I can't get medical care. I keep getting told I don't have seizures, even though I got it documented on paper. Because I'm homeless, they deny me care for my seizures. Every time I go, they tell me I'm not having it. Which is dead wrong to be dealing with. My fiance needs knee surgery. You know what the specialist told her, because she's homeless, she can't get it. Because of the aftercare. Because they think homeless people can't care for themselves, which is wrong. The right to vote. We can't vote because we homeless. You got people on parole and probation that can't vote because of criminal background. This ain't right to deal with. The right to personal property and privacy. If I leave my bag on the green, why do the cops got the right to go search my stuff because it's left on the green? That ain't fair to nobody. We can't walk 10 feet without having the cops harass us about our bags.
Invasion of privacy.
You know, we supposed to have privacy around here. Everybody else got it. Why can't we? The right to personal safety. The right to this includes the right to shelter during bad weather, and the right for families to stay in shelters together. You know, we don't even have a warning center that's open yet. They don't open till January.
That's our show for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for The Struggle.